straight lines. Okay, so all the prerequisites are done, whether it is the concept of distance formula, whether it is the concept of section formula, whether it is the staircase method of finding the area of a polygon, whether it is the concept of shifting of origin, rotation of axes, the concept of locus, which is the most important one of all. Now we are ready to launch ourselves to coordinate geometry. So now from here on, no looking back. Whatever you have learned, start deploying it. Start deploying it to solve the questions. Okay, so straight line, the very first thing that we will be requiring is the concept of slope. Slope, also called as the gradient, right? So what is slope? Slope is nothing but it is the ratio of rise to run as you move along that particular geometrical figure. Okay, let's say you're climbing a mountain. Okay, what is the slope of the mountain? Slope of the mountain is basically defined as how much vertical distance you have covered to how much horizontal distance you have covered while you are moving from a point A to a point B. Correct. So if I move from, let's say, a point A to a point B, okay, then what is the rise that I see to the run? That is called the slope of that particular mountain. So basically you can compare it with the gradient of a line. Okay, so remember, yes, gradient or slope of a curve is found by the use of derivatives. Okay, their derivative will help you because the 2 points here, there the gradients change for, see, in a curve the gradient will be defined for every point. On a line the gradient is fixed throughout. Okay, so the difference between what we did in derivative and what we are going to do now is, there when we are talking about the curve, okay, the 2 points that we took in order to connect them, they were infinitesimally small gap between them. That means they were very close to each other. They were in the neighborhood of each other. Here, A and B need not be in the neighborhood of. They may be quite far apart. But when we're talking about a linear figure, it doesn't matter whichever 2 points you take, the ratio of rise by run will always be fixed for that point, fixed for that particular line. Okay, that is a very, you can say, basic characteristic of a straight line, right? So a line and a curve are different in this aspect, that line gradient is not going to change with every point. It is going to be fixed. A curve gradient is going to change with every point. So this point A will have a different gradient, this point B will have a different gradient, this point C will have a different gradient. Okay, their gradient is defined as the slope of the tangent drawn at these points. In case of a line, if you draw tangent at A or tangent at B, they will be the same slope. They will not change. Okay, so now when we talk about gradient, we just see what is the ratio of rise to run. Now guys, rise and run, they are directed lengths. Okay, so both rise and run, they are considered to be directed lengths. Directed length means they are not absolute values. They have a sign of their own. So anything that you are measuring upwards is a positive thing in coordinate geometry. Anything you're measuring downwards is a negative thing. Anything you're measuring rightward is a positive thing. Anything you're measuring leftward is a negative thing, right? So just like we discussed it in the section formula. So rise and run both can be positive and negative quantities. Okay. So now if you're moving from A to B, if you're moving from A to B, in the present scenario, your rise will be positive and your run will also be positive, right? Why? Because as you're moving from A to B, let's say you're moving along this path, you're measuring your run in the positive direction. Okay, you're measuring your rise also in the positive direction. Correct, correct. But the ratio here, that will always be a positive quantity in this case. Okay, so if you move from B to A, okay, remember your rise will be negative. Okay, your run will also be negative. As you can see, when you're coming from B to A in this direction, you're coming down. That means you're descending a mountain. Okay, when you're descending the mountain, you're losing on the height. That means your rise is negative there, right? And your run is also negative here, isn't it? Because you're moving towards the left side, correct? So the ratio here will still be the same value as I was talking about, that it doesn't matter on a line whether you are moving from left to right or right to left, or you're moving from A to B or B to A. This ratio will always be a fixed quantity for that particular line. For that particular line, slope will always be fixed, no matter you're moving between whichever 2 points and no matter whichever direction you are moving. Okay, so as a matter of coordinate, remember this value is given by y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1. Okay, you may also write it as y1 minus y2 by x1 minus x2. Guys, but don't do this mistake. If you are doing y2 minus y1, ensure that you have written x2 minus x1 in the denominator. Don't switch the positions. Don't do y2 minus y1 on top and x1 minus x2 in the bottom. In that case, it will become wrong. Okay, so be consistent in your choice of your first coordinate and the second coordinate in this case. Okay, now the concept of slope is basically linked to a concept of angle of inclination. Angle of inclination. Okay, before I come to that, can my slope be negative? Can my slope be negative? Yes, it could be negative for a line which is oriented in this way. So let's say this is your coordinate axis. Let me draw it in a different color. Let's say this is my coordinate axis. Okay, and I have a line which is oriented like this, as shown to you in green. Okay, so if I move between any 2 points, let's say I move from point A to a point B. Okay, remember your rise here will be positive, but your run will be negative, correct? Or if you move from B to A, if you move from B to A, let me write it like this, B to A, your rise will be negative and your run will be positive. That means in either cases, your slope would be a positive by a negative or a negative by a positive. That means your slope will always be a negative quantity in such cases. Okay. Okay. So slope can be both positive, it can be negative, it can be zero also. We'll talk about it. Zero slope is when you have, let me write it down. You can have a slope zero also when your line is not showing you any rise. Okay, so rise is zero no matter whatever is the run. Okay, and your slope is a very very large value, we say tending to infinity, if your run is tending to zero. Okay, zero or tending to zero, we say, or tending to zero. Now here there is a lot of debate that exactly zero, then our slope should not be defined. See, your slope basically may not be defined, but your line can still exist for that. Okay, so there can be a line existing for a slope which is not defined. Are you getting my point? For example, the y-axis. Y-axis is a line, correct? Right? Its slope is not defined, right? Many people will try to justify that y-axis, the slope is tending to infinity. So there are different ways to justify this concept. Okay, we will not go into details of that because that is not useful for our problem solving, right? We are not going to do research work on it. Okay, but if you ask my opinion, I would say you can consider y-axis to be a line with infinite slope. Okay, to be an infinite slope. Now, let us talk about angle of inclination. You have done this chapter in your school, I believe. Can somebody define angle of inclination for me? Anybody? What is the angle of inclination of any line? So let's say this is my line. Yes. Okay, Advik says angle that the line makes with the positive direction of x-axis. Okay, so can I say this is my angle of inclination? Advik, can I say theta is my angle of inclination? Advik is saying no. Hariharan is saying yes, why not? Okay, what is your, okay, let me do one thing. Let me show you a few things here. Theta, let me write here as, let's say I write this as phi, okay, and let me write this as alpha, okay. Tell me which of the following gives you, or okay, let me do something slightly more weird. Let me call it as beta. Which of the four gives you the angle of inclination? So alpha and phi both. Okay, so a particular line has two angle of inclinations. That means you people have not studied this concept properly. Yes, Aditya, the answer is theta or alpha. You can state either of the two. Okay, now see, get the definition correct. This is not the angle of inclination. Angle of inclination is either alpha or theta. In fact, both are the same because they are vertically opposite. Okay, now listen to the definition, which many people misinterpret. Angle of inclination is defined as the angle between the x-axis and the line measured from the x-axis in an anti-clockwise direction. In an anti-clockwise direction. Okay, anti-clockwise direction, and this anti-clockwise direction is basically written in the textbook as positive direction. Remember, in angles the positive direction is anti-clockwise root, correct, isn't it? We have learned this in our trigonometry also. So any angle measured anti-clockwise, that is only positive, correct? So if you measure the angle between the line and the x-axis such that you are measuring it from the x-axis in an anti-clockwise direction, then that angle would be called as the angle of inclination, which is satisfied by theta and alpha only, not phi and beta. Are you getting my point? So there can only be one angle of inclination. There cannot be two angles of inclination. Theta and phi both are same value. Sorry, alpha and theta here both are same values. Are you getting my point? Okay. Now, what is the misinterpretation that people do? Positive direction of x-axis means positive x-axis. No. Positive direction from the x-axis means measured in an anti-clockwise direction from the x-axis. Are you getting my point? Are you getting my point? So let's say if a line was like this, let's say like this, okay? That means it is not cutting the positive x-axis. Won't there be an angle of inclination for this? There will be, isn't it? So this is the angle of inclination. Start from the x-axis till you hit the line, moving in an anti-clockwise direction, my dear. Moving in an anti-clockwise direction, that angle would be your angle of inclination. So this angle would be your AOI. Are you getting my point? Are you getting my point? Okay. So here, angle of inclination is linked to the slope. How? See, if you move from any 2 point A to B, okay, let's say this is our alpha angle or whatever you want to call it, theta angle, alpha angle. Okay, you can see that tan of alpha will give you the ratio of rise to run. So this is your rise This is your run. Correct. So basically your tan alpha gives you the slope. Okay. Slope be represented by letter M. Okay. I think I've already used it before, letter M. Okay. So angle of inclination, if it is acute, let me write it like this. If it is acute, then remember the line will have a positive slope. If angle of inclination is obtuse, then remember your line will have negative slope. Okay. If your angle of inclination is 0, that means your line is parallel to x-axis. Okay. Oh, sorry. Okay, of course, M will also be 0. So M will be 0. And if your angle of inclination is tending to 90 degree, many people say equal to 90 degree also, that means your line will be parallel to your y-axis. Okay, that is what we call as horizontal and vertical lines respectively. So this is what we call as horizontal line. Okay, and this is what we call as the vertical line. Vertical line. Okay, so is the idea of what is angle of inclination clear to you? So angle of inclination will always be a value which is between 0 to pi, including 0, excluding pi. Okay. Angle of inclination between two lines, angle of inclination of any line can never exceed this interval. So if somebody says angle of inclination is, let's say 150 degree, 240 degree, that means he is basically getting confused. It is not angle of inclination that he is citing. Okay. So if angle of inclination can only be between 0 to, let me just make a scenario where somebody would state 240 degree. Really, let's say if 240 degree is like this, so basically he's trying to cite a line of this nature, right? So it is not 240 degree that you would state this angle. This would be your angle of inclination. This would not be your angle of inclination. This will not be your angle of inclination. Okay, so don't get confused if somebody tries to say that. Okay. Why is pi round bracket? Is because, see, when the angle between the x-axis and the line becomes 180 degree, it is back to 0. Correct? So it is back to 0. So if you're saying the angle between a line and the x-axis is 180 degree, it is as good as saying the angle between the line and the x-axis is 0. Okay. So please make a note of this. A lot of confusions I've seen in my past with angle of inclination. Okay. Now with this concept, we are going to talk about angle between two lines with given slopes. So let us say I have two lines given to me. Let's say one is this blue line. Okay. Another is this white line. Okay. Yeah. Let's say these two lines have been provided with their slopes. Let's say M1 and M2. Okay. Now I want to get the angle between the two lines in terms of M1 and M2. Now remember, there are two types of angles between lines. One can be theta and other could be pi minus theta. Okay. Now which one is acute, which one is obtuse, or whether they are perpendicular, I cannot comment till I see my M1 and M2 values. Okay. Now, how will I get this relationship between theta, M1 and M2? This concept is very important. So let us try to figure that out. Let us say the angle of inclination of this line is alpha. Angle of inclination of the white line is beta. Okay. Just now we figured out that angle of inclination tan is given by the slope of that line. So tan alpha is M1 and tan beta is M2. Okay. Now how should I relate theta to M1 and M2? That question comes in our mind. We all know from our basic geometry that alpha plus theta is going to be beta. Remember, the sum of the interior two angles is equal to the sum of the opposite exterior angle. Correct? So from here I can say theta is equal to beta minus alpha. Okay, so far all good, no problem with that. Now, if I want to introduce M1 and M2 into the system, I have to take tan on both the sides. Correct? So if I take tan on both the sides, okay, so tan of theta would become tan of beta minus tan of alpha by 1 plus tan beta tan alpha. Okay, in other words, tan of theta is, if I'm not mistaken, M2 minus M1 by 1 plus M1 M2. Are you getting my point? Now, the expression that you see in front of you will basically give you this tan of this angle theta. Correct? Let's say I modify my question and I say, give me the acute angle between the two lines. Okay, so what I'm doing now, I'm modifying my question. Okay, tan theta is fine, no doubt about it. Absolutely correct expression. Okay, but now I want to know what is the acute angle between the lines. What is the acute angle between the lines? Okay, how will I find that out? How will I find that out? Now, remember, when you have been given the values of M1 and M2, this expression that you see over here, it can come out to be a positive expression, or it can come out to be negative expression. It can come out to be undefined also. It can come out to be zero also. So there are several possibilities. Correct. So let us look into the several possibilities. Yes, Anurag, that's what I'm coming to. The several possibilities here is that, let's say if your M2 minus M1 by 1 plus M1 M2 becomes a positive quantity. Okay, then the acute angle that you're looking for, let's say I call this as your acute angle. What should I call? Should I call it as acute only, so that we are not confused? So your acute angle would be nothing but tan inverse of M2 minus M1 by 1 plus M1 M2. Okay, but this is subject to the fact that I am getting M2 minus M1 by 1 plus M1 M2 as a positive quantity. Now, why tan inverse of that will give me an acute angle? Remember, your angle between two lines will always be between 0 to pi. Correct? Just like angle of inclination, right? Between any two lines, the angle can always be between 0 to pi only. Correct? Pi exclusive, let's say. So if your tan of an angle is coming out to be positive, that means that angle should be in the first quadrant, and if it is in the first quadrant, it automatically becomes acute. Correct? But what if your M2 minus M1 by 1 plus M1 M2 becomes negative? Then remember, your acute angle would be figured out by the use of the formula pi minus tan inverse of M2 minus M1 by 1 plus M1 M2. Are you getting my point? Okay, is this fine? Now, the same thing, if you see in your textbooks, they will say, if you want to directly find the acute angle, just do tan inverse of mod of M2 minus M1 by 1 plus M1 M2. Can somebody justify why they are doing this? Why don't they wait for the value of M2 minus M1 by 1 plus M1 M2? The reason for this is very simple. If you see, if one of the angles, let us say this is acute, then this will be obtuse. Correct? No? Correct. And tan of acute angle and tan of obtuse angle both are negatives of each other, as you can see from your basic supplementary angle properties. Correct? Right? So value wise they are same, value is same, or you can say magnitude is same. Let me change my statement. Magnitude is same, Just signs are opposite. Sign is opposite. Okay. So if you find tan of an angle and you realize that you are getting, let's say, 1 by 2, correct? Then tan inverse 1 by 2 will give you the acute angle, and pi minus tan inverse 1 by 2 will give you the obtuse angle, correct? So tan inverse minus half, if you do, you will automatically get the obtuse angle without having to do pi minus thing. Are you getting my point? Are you understanding what I'm trying to say? So what I'm trying to say in a nutshell is that tan of the acute angle and tan of its supplementary are opposite in signs. Correct? Isn't it? So one with the negative sign will be basically giving you the tan of the obtuse angle, and one with the positive sign will give you tan of the acute angle. So if I directly want acute angle, why don't I mod this and make it positive? Because magnitude wise both will be the same. Only sign wise they will be different. Correct. Correct. So I just take a tan inverse of it. My job is done. Getting the point? So this is a direct formula. Please make a note of it. You will see your books using tan inverse m1 minus m2 by 1 plus m1 m2 mod also. Both are the same thing. Hardly any difference, right? And if you know your acute angle, please note the formula for obtuse angle will be just pi minus tan inverse, okay, mod m1 minus m2 by 1 plus m1 m2. Okay. Many people say, sir, why don't we just wait for the exact value of m1 minus m2 and all those things? See, you can do that also, and this formula is also going to give you the same result. Okay. Now, few special cases under this. If you realize your m1 is equal to m2, then remember the two lines are parallel to each other. This is called the condition of parallelism. This is called the condition for parallelism. Okay. And I'm finding myself short of space over here. So let me just go here. If your M1, M2 is such that their product is -1, that means your denominator of this term vanishes. That means the lines are perpendicular to each other. The lines are perpendicular to each other. Okay. This is called the condition of perpendicularity. The condition for perpendicularity of two lines, which I think you have done in your junior classes as well, that the product of the slopes would be -1. Okay. The condition for parallelism is that the lines would have the same slope. Is that fine? Any questions here? Okay. All right. So let us take some further concepts. Do let me know if you have any questions. Should we take a break here? I think we should take a break here. Why there is a tan inverse? Tan theta is known, so theta is tan inverse of that. Okay. Oh, Pranav doesn't want a break. We can go till 6:30. Okay, fine, as you wish. So with this concept, we are now going to talk about equations of a line. Now, your line equations are broadly going to be classified under two verticals. Your line equations are broadly classified under two verticals. One we call as the standard forms. Okay. And the second one we call it as the general form. Okay. Let me write it slightly below this because there are a couple of standard forms. Yeah. Okay, now there are several standard forms of a line that you can get. I'll talk about it in some time, but let me just list it down. Could you show lines for parallelism in previous? Okay. Condition for parallelism is M1 equal to M2. Adrija. Yeah. Done, Adrija? Copied? What is there to prove, Anurag? If M1 and M2 become -1, okay, let's go back to our expression. Tan of theta was M1 minus M2 by 1 plus M1 M2. Correct? If your M1 M2 product is -1, what will happen? This term will go to 0, right? If this term will go to 0, means theta will go to 90 degree. It will become undefined. Correct? And of course, it cannot be 3 pi by 2, it cannot be 5 pi by 2, because angle between two lines can never exceed pi. Is that fine? Okay. Yeah, so I was talking about the different forms of the equations of the lines that we will be studying under this chapter. So we broadly categorize it under two categories. One is called the standard forms. Under standard forms, we are going to study number one, 2-point form. 2-point form is a form where you will be given 2 points, x1, y1 and x2, y2. Okay. And from there, we'll get the equation of a line connecting these two. Okay. Second is called the slope point form, where you will be given the slope of the line and one of the coordinates or one of the points lying on the line. I'll repeat once again. I think I got broken in between. So in the slope point form, you will be provided with the slope of the line and you will be given one of the points lying on that line. And from there, we need to get the equation. Okay, so that standard form is called the slope point form. Next is the slope intercept form. Okay, so in this form, you will be given the slope and either the x-intercept or the y-intercept. Or let me write it separately. X-intercept, or you would be given y-intercept. Okay. The fourth type of equation that we are going to study is called the intercept form. Let me write form everywhere. Intercept form. In intercept form, you will be given x-intercept and y-intercept. X-intercept and y-intercept. Okay. The fifth type we are going to study is called the normal form. Okay. In the normal form, you will be given the distance of the origin from the line and the angle made by the normal with the x-axis. Angle made by the normal. Okay, I'll talk about it in details. I'm just listing it down. I think I need to push it a little bit more down. And the sixth form, which is not covered in school, it is called the parametric form. Parametric form. Remember, I was talking about parametric form today. So this is the form which we'll be talking about. It is also called the distance form. It is also called the distance form. Not the distance formula. No, it's a distance form. Okay. Here you will be given. Okay, we'll talk about it in detail. Okay, little later on. So now these are the 6 forms which we are going to cover, and one more form which is the general form. General form doesn't require any kind of discussion. I can actually write it down over here. This is called the general form of a line. Okay, this is called the general form of any line. So any line equation, you will see that will always have a x term, y term, and a constant. All need not be present. All need not be present. Okay. Now, I'll talk about it, shares. Don't worry. I'm just giving you an overview of it. Okay. We'll go details into it. Okay. I'll talk about everything. Okay. If you look at all these 6 forms over here, you would realize that in order to get a unique line, 2 things must be given to you. As you can see, they're always talking about 2 things, either 2-point or slope point or slope x-intercept or slope y-intercept or x-intercept y-intercept or p and angle. Okay, and even in distance form, you would need the point and the slope. Okay, now I know you'll be confusing it with how is it different from the second option. It is different. I'll talk about it. Okay, so if you see in all these cases, you would realize that in order to get a unique line, I need 2 things. Any 2 things you provide me about the line, any 2 informations. Let me be more specific here. If you give me 2 things about a line, I can give you a unique line, satisfying that condition. Right? Now, a counter question to that. If you look at the general form has got 3 unknowns. Right? And since childhood, we have learned that to know 3 unknowns, we need 3 conditions. How am I getting a line equation uniquely just by 2 conditions? How is that possible? Isn't it not contradictory? So a line equation has what? Ax, by, c term, right? Some x term with a constant, some y term with a constant, and some c term. So to know a, b, c, I need 3 conditions. But in all these instances, you are seeing that you need only 2 conditions to get a unique line. Isn't it contradictory? Isn't it contradictory? Absolutely. The answer is given by Hariharan. See, actually, this is a misnomer. If you divide by any of the constant, let's say I divide by c throughout. If you divide by by c throughout, slip off my tongue. If you divide by c throughout, you would realize that you only need these 2 values. Let's say I call it as ax plus by plus c. That means it has only got 2 degrees of freedom. You don't need 3 equations to know your 2 degrees of freedom here. Okay, so this is very important. Many interviewers will ask you this question. Probably, let's say if you qualify, now that there is no KVPY interview, thankfully, but let's say if you were a KVPY aspirant last year, they would have asked this question to you. In a line, you have ax, by, and c. So to know a, b, c, we need 3 conditions. So how come you are getting the equation of standard forms only by knowing 2 conditions? So this is the answer. I think this was the question which was asked to me. Okay, so that's why I remember this fact very clearly. So in equation of a line, there is only 2 degrees of freedom, not 3 degrees of freedom. So in order to get those 2, you need only 2 conditions. No 3 conditions is required. Okay, clear? Good. So with this, let us start with the very first standard form, which is called the 2-point form. Now in 2-point form, you will be given that there are 2 points on a given line, or there are 2 points, and if they are connected, find the equation of the line connecting them. So let's say A and B are 2 points. Now, what is the principle behind getting this equation? Now try to understand. Again, it is based on locus concept. Okay, locus is going to help us. So I claim that the locus of I claim that the equation of this line is the locus of a set of points P, which moves in such a way that it maintains the same slope with A as A maintains with B. That means P is moving in such a way that it is always satisfying this criteria. If such a point traces a path, then that path has to be the line connecting A and B. Do you agree with me on that or not? Again, I'm repeating my statement. The statement is, I'm claiming that the line connecting A and B, or the equation of a line connecting A and B, would be locus of a point P which moves in such a way that if you calculate the slope of AP, or for that matter BP, it would be same as the slope of the other two. That means if you take any 2 points on this, any two pairs on this, the slope that you would obtain would be the same. If that is happening, then yes, I can say H is connecting, or H is basically on the line connecting A and B. Yes or no? Idea clear? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll repeat once again, Anurag. So this line connecting A and B would be the locus of a point P such that slope of AP and slope of BP, or let's say slope of AB, both would be the same, isn't it? So if this condition, this is the condition which I have written in on your screen. If this condition is met by P, then we can say that P would be tracing a line connecting A and B. That is what I was trying to say. Okay. So what is AP? AP slope is K minus Y1 by H minus X1. AB slope is Y2 minus Y1 by X2 minus X1. Okay. So let us try to write it like this. Okay. Let us generalize this. So y minus y1 is equal to y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1, x minus x1. So please make a note of this. This is what we call as the 2-point form of a line. This is what we call as the 2-point form of a line. Okay, please note this down and remember it. Okay. Now many people ask me, sir, will this change if I write y2 here and x2 here? No, it doesn't matter. Okay, even if you take BP slope is equal to slope of AB, it will not matter. Okay, will it matter if I do y1 minus y2 by x1 minus x2? Definitely it will not matter. Common sense says it will not matter. Okay, so you can choose your x1 y1 to be any one of the 2 points A and B, because the question setter will never name a point. Okay, he'll just give you a point straight away. Are you getting my point? Okay, now something very interesting and important. What if we were dealing with a vertical line? Okay, what if you're dealing with a vertical line, and what if you were dealing with a horizontal line? So I'll make those two diagrams over here. Okay, if you're making a horizontal line, let me name it here. If you're dealing with a horizontal line, remember your y will not change. So y2 minus y1 will be 0. So y2 minus y1 will be 0 for a horizontal line. That means your equation will boil down to y equal to y1. Okay, any horizontal line equation will be y equal to some constant. Get this straight away in your mind. Okay, so y equal to constant is the structure of any horizontal line. Okay, if you're dealing with a vertical line, remember one important thing. This term in the denominator will become a 0. So it will look like this. All of you please pay attention. Okay, okay, now many people say, oh my god, sir, this is an undefined expression. How are you writing the equation like this? Guys, Normally what we do is we treat this to be a very symbolic thing. Okay, let me just tell you something very interesting. It basically is read like this. Okay, now many people say, is this allowed? Are we allowed to write something in the denominator? This is just a symbolic thing. It just means to say that your x coordinate of any point on that line will always be x1. Guys, something very interesting. When you learn 3D next year, when I'll be teaching you 3D geometry next year, you would be surprised to see such equations. X minus 1 by 2, y minus 3 by 0, x minus 2 by 0, something like this. Okay, this is acceptable notation. You know why? Because it is just a way to say that on this line, this is a line, this is a 3D line. This is an example of a 3D line, three-dimensional line. Okay, so this is just a way to say that on that line, y value will always be fixed at 3 and z value will always be fixed at 2. X coordinate will keep changing. Okay, so this is symbolically accepted in the field of coordinate geometry. I'm not doing any operation with the 0 over here. I'm just symbolizing it. Are you getting my point? If you want to do an operation, you can just take the 0 on the other side and write it like this. X minus x1 is equal to 0. In other words, you can write it like this. So this is a structure of the equation of a vertical line. A vertical line equation will always be x equal to some constant. So as of now, try to accept the fact that while you are writing the equation of a line in 2D or 3D, there could be a 0 in the denominator, but symbolically. Are you getting my point? It's a symbolic representation. It is not a, it's not written there to do some kind of operation there. Okay, if you want to do an operation, take the 0 on the other side. Are you getting my point here? Okay, so these are some weird things that you will learn about straight lines. Okay, so can I move on to the second form? The second standard form is what we call as the slope point form. Please note the names also. They are also very important because later on I'll be referring to by these names. Okay, in slope point form, as we discussed, we'll be given the slope of the line and we'll be given a point on the line. Okay, now I think this is also on the same core principle as we took. So let's say h comma k is a point. So if you want a line to have a slope of m and passing through h comma k, then it is basically the locus of all such points p whose slope, let's say AP slope, will always be m. Correct? This is the locus condition. Correct? This is my locus condition. So that means k minus y1 by h minus x1 will always be m. In other words, k minus y1 is equal to m h minus x1. Correct? Replace your k with a y and h with an x, and there you go. This is the equation of, this is the standard form of an equation of a line, which we call as the slope point form. Okay. Now here also something very interesting. If m is 0, that means if you're dealing with a horizontal line, remember the right side will completely vanish off. That means it will become 0. And this is in sync with what we had done a couple of minutes ago. So a horizontal line will have only equation which will look like y equal to some constant. And if your m is tending to infinity, now see, very interesting here. That means you're dealing with a vertical line. Then what we do is we write it like this. Okay. And since m is a very large number, this whole thing will tend to 0. Okay, this is how we justify our connection between the different forms, and this is what you will get. That means a vertical line will have equations of this nature, a horizontal line will have equations of this nature. Is this fine? Any questions here? Any concerns? Okay, so these forms are done. Let us take few questions meanwhile. I think I've been just talking about theory. I would also like to do some questions. Yeah. Let me take it in another page. What do you say? What's wrong with me? Next page. IIT JEE 2001 question. Oh, is it lagging? Okay, let me switch off my camera. I think then it'll be proper. Yeah. The graph of this function is which of the following? Let me launch the poll. Done? 3 people have answered and their all options are different from each other. Okay, good. Okay, let's wrap this up in another 30 seconds. Guys, this is under 1 minute question. You just have to be good in your trigonometry. That's it. So it's a question of trigonometry more than straight lines. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please vote, everybody. Please vote, please vote, please vote, please vote. Okay. Most of you have gone for option A and D. Option A and D. Okay. So let me discuss that. So basically your function was y is equal to cos x plus 2 and cos square x plus 1. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply this with a 2. Okay. So we all know that 2 cos A cos B is cos A plus B plus cos A minus B. And this is going to be 1 plus cos 2x plus 1. 2x plus 1 is 2x plus 2. Okay. So when you simplify this, you'll get cos 2 minus 1, which means y is equal to negative of 1 minus cos 2 by 2, which actually gives you y is equal to negative sine square 1. Okay. When any line has this kind of a equation, just now we had discussed that it would be a line which is a horizontal line. Okay. And it will pass through any such point whose y coordinate is always negative sine square 1. Okay. That means a parallel to x-axis line, and it should pass through any point whose y coordinate is always negative sine square 1. This is the meaning of this equation. That means this can change. This can change, but this will always be fixed. Okay. So first of all, let us check. Is it option A, straight line passing through? Point is okay. Point is fine, acceptable. But with slope 2, no. Slope 2 is not possible. Gone. Straight line passing through 0, no. This should not be 0. This should be negative sine square 1. Not possible. Parabola, definitely not. Straight line. So has to be option D. So pi by 2 is acceptable. Any point here is acceptable. It's just that this should be sine square 1, minus sine square 1. And of course, parallel to x-axis. Is that fine? Okay. So fine, let us take a break right now.